It doesn't matter how much gear you can stuff inside your bug out bag. If you can't carry it, it's useless to you. But here's the thing, you don't need to carry everything, especially gear that's only going to be useful in certain areas along your primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency route. The smart thing to do is to map out those areas ahead of time and stash or pre-stage critical supplies at those locations. Because every pound that you put in a cache is a pound that's off of your back. Let's take fishing gear for an example, right? Here I've got a survival fishing kit. I have some fishing yo-yos, and I've got a couple of rolls of snare wire in here. This one has a couple of military speed hooks and some survival snares. I can only use this fishing gear in areas where there's a water source. So rather than put this in my bug out bag and carry it through all the areas I could never use it, I look at my map, I look at my primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency routes, my pace routes, and then I determine where there are actually water sources that I could use these at. And then I stash those in a cache nearby rather than carry it through all the areas that I have no chance of using it. So we recently moved probably about an hour away from where we were. So that meant all new planning, all new pace routes. That's primary, alternate, contingency, emergency routes. Those are routes that we as a family would take from our primary location, which would be our bug in location, which is our primary plan. We plan to stay there until we can't. But if we do have to leave, then we need to go to an alternate bug-in location. So we have pre-planned routes, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. So 4 different routes to get to that alternate bug-in location. So what I did was take a look at the map, take a look at places along my route that I could set up either a supply cache or a resupply cache. Well, since we moved, I have to move some, but not all of those. This particular one, I'm moving close to a water source, and I'm going to fill it up with fishing gear and some other things that'll come in handy in this area specifically. Don't need to carry it on my back, just needs to be here in case I come through here and need to use it. I've spent years using DIY caches, homemade caches, and they've been fine, they've been okay. But probably about 10 months ago, I was introduced to a company called Dirty Man Safe. And I have to say, after messing around with these for almost a year now, about 10 months, this is just a superior cache system. It just is. So because I have to dig a few up and move them, I'm just going to upgrade all of the ones that I dig up into the Dirty Man Safe, and eventually I'll have all of my caches in these exclusively. Here's why I'm switching all of my caches to the Dirty Man Safe. Very similar in construction as far as the way I used to construct my DIY caches. So I'm used to this and I know that this type of system works, but this one's improved. This design is much better. This one actually has a pull handle, super thin, 3/16 stainless steel, so this could be harder to detect with metal detectors. So again, it's just a vast improvement over what I was using before. I really like the vertical design. This vertical design, when it goes in vertically, that means that there's a smaller footprint. So it's going to be harder to detect. It's also going to be way easier to dig straight down, as well as when it comes time to service it, it's much easier to service. This actually goes down inside a burial sleeve. There's another larger pipe that gets buried, and this actually slides down into that. But that burial sleeve that this sits down inside just makes it way easier to service because the hole, all the dirt isn't collapsing back down into the hole. So it's easier to pick out, check what you need to check, service what you need to service, get it back in there, and get it covered back up and get back on the move. And these are made from industrial grade ABS plastic. This mimics our existing plumbing infrastructure. So this just works in the ground. This plastic has a 50-year lifespan. Then of course, one of the things that's often overlooked, this actually comes with some silica gel, some desiccant packets, which is good. You definitely want to put those. I like to put those in the top and in the bottom. Also comes with salting metals, which are basically little steel ball bearings that you can scatter around the area to kind of give false positives to anyone that's sweeping the area with a metal detector. Put this anywhere but where your cache is to throw them off. And of course, last but not least, this is an American small business that I'm happy to support. This is just a superior design to anything I was using before. When I'm thinking about what type of cache I'm going to put in any particular place, I try to categorize them in 2 different ways, right? It's either a supply cache, meaning it's stuff that's not in my bug out bag that is useful in a particular area, or a resupply cache, meaning it's items that are in my bug out bag that are expendable. They might have been used and I need to replenish those supplies. For the supply cache, I'm thinking of things that are not in my bug out bag that may be useful in a particular area. The fishing gear example we talked about earlier. I've got a survival fishing kit here. This is a couple of fishing yo-yos as well as some snare wire. And then here I've got a couple of military speed hooks, which are also for some passive fishing, and some survival snares. So all that is in here. I don't carry these in my bug out bag normally, so these I would cache where they're going to be useful in a supply cache. For a resupply cache, these are items that I have inside my bug out bag that are depletable resources. Those are things I like to think of as beans, bullets, bandages, and batteries, that sort of thing. It's already in my bag, but I'm going to use it up, you know, the longer and longer I'm living out of that bag. So a resupply cache has items to kind of top off my bug out bag as I'm coming through. Again, I like to think of those as beans, meaning food. I put some extra rations in there, or maybe a different type of ration, or you know, the snare wire plus the survival snares to be able to get more beans, get more foods. As far as bullets, I just put some additional rounds in there of whatever I'm carrying. In this case, I've got a box of 9mm and probably about 60 rounds of 5.56. Bandages. Again, this is something I hope that I don't have to replenish, but it's nice to know that I can get this if I'm running through this area and need to resupply my IFAK, my med kit. I can put a full IFAK in there or just some individual bandage material, extra tourniquet, something to that effect. And as far as batteries, you know, whatever critical electronics that you have in your system, you need to make sure that you can replenish the batteries because you are going to go through these. So it's nice to have some in that resupply cache to kind of top those off on the move. A couple of other items you may choose to put in there. This is just kind of a top off for a fire kit. This has got some stormproof matches, some tinder tabs, which is an emergency tinder, and it's got a Fresnel lens on there that I could use so I can top off my fire kit if I need to. This is 50 feet of paracord. Maybe for some reason I had to cut really quick and run and I've used up all my paracord, or I need paracord for additional things like traps in this area. I might put in some additional paracord or some bank line. If I'm using a Grail system or any other water purifier system as my primary means of, you know, getting water on the move, then of course having an extra cartridge, an extra filter cartridge in a resupply cache is a good idea. One last tip that I'll give you is always put a map of the area the cache is in. Always put an extra map inside there. It doesn't take up any space. This could be a really critical item for you in this area. Make sure you've got an extra map in every cache. Now here's something that I stash in every cache that I guarantee you nobody else does. It's not for survival, it's not tactical, it's purely for morale. Stick around to the end and I'll show you what it is. So for this particular cache, it's going to be a combination of supply and resupply. I'm in an area that I think will be good for fishing and trapping, so I'm going to put my fishing and trapping supplies in here as much as I can fit, as well as some resupply items only if I have extra room. Primarily this is meant to be a supply cache, but these hold up to 25 pounds and they've got space in them. So basically the way I like to think of it is I'll put my supplies in here and then whatever room I have left over, I'll put in with kind of those critical resupply items just in case I need them, and then I'll top it off. There's no sense leaving additional space in here so long as you haven't busted the weight limit. First things first, I have my mystery item already down inside there because I want it to be on top of the cache. We'll just say it's non-metallic and fragile. So I want that down. I don't want that sitting in the cache, you know, for a long period of time with all the heavier items on it. So that's already in here. Map, because it doesn't take up any room, that's definitely going in. I've got some extra room inside there, so I'm going to slide some batteries down in that little cubby hole. My fishing kit. See if I can fit these snares in here. Okay, that's getting pretty well full. I'll top that off with some disc skin packets. I need to put some thread tape around the threads. All right, got my thread tape on, screw my lid tight. Go ahead and give it a little harumph with the wrench. That should be good. Here's how I make sure my caches stay safe, waterproof, and virtually undetectable. If I'm burying a cache in an area that has sod, like a grassy area, you need to remove that sod plug in one piece and keep it together. That way, when you dig everything out, you move all of that dirt, you can replace that plug. It still has grass growing in it. Here in the forest, I don't have to worry about it. The top of the forest floor is covered with leaf litter, so I can just replace that leaf litter. Second tip that I'll give you is to use a poncho or some sort of ground cloth so that the dirt that you remove, you can place on top of that, and it gives you something to take excess dirt further out away from your cache area to kind of spread it out. And that's going to be way less displacement in your cache area. The third thing I'll tell you is make sure that you bury it at least 12 inches deep. That means 12 inches to the top of your cache. 12 inches deep will put it down below the threshold of where kind of your traditional metal detectors are going to be able to reach. So it protects it in that way. When you pack it, try to pack all your metallic items so that they sit at the bottom, so that it puts it even further away from those metal detectors. Plus that 12-inch depth is going to give it protection in the unlikely event that a wildfire comes through your cache area. And then the last thing I'll tell you is to kind of salt the area with some decoy metal that'll throw off people's metal detectors by giving them a positive signature in areas that are not your cache. Now let's get this in the ground. I'm going to take that excess cable and slide it down through that slot. Get it deeper down into the cache, set the handle right up on top. Get some dirt around it. That should do it. You can see the cache is right here. And I left a little bit proud on the top because once it rains, it's gonna sink a little bit, settle a little. But I'll take that extra dirt there and I'll just kind of spread it around the forest. All right, my cache area is sterilized. Everything is ready to go. Everything looks like I was never even here. The cache is actually in frame right now. Last thing I need to do is salt the earth. I need to salt the area around here with these to give off false positives, but I'm ready to go. So when you're salting the area, you want to take one of your salting metals and you need to bury it about 6 inches deep. Easiest way is just take a shovel, get down about 6 inches, drop it in, and then just kind of cover it back over. Like that. Do that all around your cache, everywhere but where your cache is. If you're not using caches, you should be. And if you are using caches, they should be from Dirty Man Safe. Get yours now at dirtymansafe.com. Remember that every pound in a cache is a pound off your back. Oh yeah, that mystery item, Twinkies. You can say what you want, you can laugh all you want, but I'm telling you that nothing hits like a Twinkie after 3 or 4 days on the run. Hope to see you in the woods.